Hey everybody, Elizabeth Nader back with you, Jersey First TV and the Nader Narrative. I've got a great guest today to bring to you that most of you, if you're in Morris County, you know who this guy is. Thomas Ace Gallagher, otherwise known as Ace to most of us. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate being here.
You are the deputy mayor of Hanover Township, which is something that's important to you. Public service is a big part of your life, as we'll talk about, but you're also involved in some initiatives that bring in many people across New Jersey, focused on teenagers, focused on mental health. And I want to get into that because it's an incredibly important topic, especially considering what's going on really in our world right now. But Ace, I want to start a little bit for those who don't know you as well as many do. Your background in the county, your background in the town, you've done a lot. You grew up here, actually in Bayonne, and you've served Board of Education, you've served town council. What is it about public service that is so important to you?
What's most interesting about it is when I became a father, my priorities changed almost immediately. And when you saw certain things that should be handled differently, especially walking to school, walking from school, some of the activities, everything, you look at the world through a different set of eyes and you listen to it through a different set of ears. And I was never one of those people that just simply wanted to complain. I thought, you know what, this is good, but it could probably be better.
Yeah.
And I've always had very good people around me. And I think collaborating is very important. And I think that comes from playing music. I don't think anybody has the answer. I think, but with a few like-minded people together, you can do almost anything.
Yeah.
So I think what got me largely to that point where I wanted to do something is when my son was young, we had a few issues with him. And I thought it was interesting that people didn't really listen to us. My wife got upset and I got a little angry. And I said to myself, I don't think that's the way that's supposed to be handled. So when somebody initially approached me about running for the Board of Education, I actually called my mom, who's a school teacher for 30 years in Hanover, and I said, what did I do? And she told me. I said, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
And I realized early on that if you listen, if you're honest, if you have a backbone, and you can collaborate, you can do a lot of really good things.
Yeah. Well,
that's where I really began, Elizabeth.
Well, you clearly have a love for it. And I think what's interesting, you talk about collaboration and your music background, being in a band, and everyone who knows you knows that music's a big part of your life, but also you clearly have a love for teenagers, for the youth, and really for solving problems. You are somebody who, especially in your town, if there's an issue and someone has something they need help with, you're the guy to call. But you have a love for teens. Did that come out of challenges you had as a parent, or was that just something you were always drawn to that age group?
I think it began when I was younger and I was always playing music, and I was playing music with older people. And I know the struggles young people go through. And at a very young age, I knew what path I did not want to go down. Like with drums, I would rather play louder, faster, and have nicer equipment than stand in a parking lot and get inebriated.
Yeah.
I knew that some people were going to be fine. Some people had a proclivity to go down the wrong road. And some people needed some prompting. Like I always joke, me and all my friends, we were on the fence. We could have went either way. Fortunately, we always had good people that gave us a little bit of prompting. So when I got older, and still playing music and teaching drums, because I taught drums for 18 years, I always try to guide people. You know, like the love for the instrument and the love for the activity is more important than the quote lifestyle. Because there's nothing like playing drums, and with an athlete, there's nothing like playing the sport itself. Everything else is just, you know, almost like scenery.
Right.
And what I realized also at a very young age is that although some people have a proclivity for one behavior or another, we can make a choice. And in making a choice, you have to have information in people that are trustworthy.
Yeah.
And you're around a lot more people than I am. In our arena, there's wonderful, wonderful people. But just like in music and sports, there's some people that aren't so wonderful.
This is true.
And you know what? I'm not going to refer to any one person today because there's too many, and we both have a lot of wonderful people in our loop. But just to fast forward, a gentleman like James Gannon, Sheriff James Gannon, I mean, I think he's an incredible human being that has touched thousands and thousands of people.
Actually, let me stop you on that because he's done incredible things. Morris County Sheriff. I want to get to Sheriff Gannon because when you talk about collaboration, and Ace, you are so good at collaborating and pulling people together, and that's important to you. And we're going to talk about some of those names with a highlight on the sheriff.
Good.
But I want to, before we do that, I want to talk about the next really biggest thing for you coming out of your experiences, your love for teenagers, your desire to get them that message that life is choices, make good choices. And really one of, I think, the important part of your legacy here is the creation of the New Jersey Coalition for Education and Positive Choices. I want you to describe what that organization is.
I can do that, and I've done it for a long time, and I could do it a little bit quicker than some of my other answers. There's a need for people to get together, and if nothing else, share very good, relevant, important information. And what the impetus was for the New Jersey Coalition was simply to share information. Because when I was on the Board of Education, I knew what they were teaching in the school system when it came to drugs, alcohol, and the way they can both be abused and dominate a life in a bad way. And I would say to my son, "What did you learn today, Dan, in health?" My son's name is Dan. And he'd go, "Oh, nothing." And I'd say, "No, I kind of know what you learned today." And I'd ask him. Then I'd prompt him and get a little something. My daughter, several years later, the same thing. So what I discovered was there is a war on drugs and alcohol, and knowledge is power. And how could we be effective in a war if we don't have the knowledge and therefore no power? So my initial concept for this group was to simply share information with people. A topic, just going back to CNN in the 80s, they had a thing called the factoid.
Right.
We would have a topic of a drug or an alcohol product. A paragraph on a telltale sign what it is and if it's trending, and then click to read more. So in educating people through the device that we're all obsessed with today makes us a little more effective and a little more valuable in protecting our families and loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the day of the big assembly of having parents go to them, we all had to admit that those days are over.
They are.
If you have an assembly during school, the children are going to go, they're going to learn, and it's going to light some of them up. But if you're a parent and you say, "Hey, how was that assembly today?" You're going to hear, "Oh, it was good." But you're not going to get any information. So therefore, where are you going to get your information from? So besides everything else, this coalition began simply as an information sharing vehicle.
Right, right. And coalition being a key word, and focusing on the drug epidemic and really wanting the youth to make choices for a positive lifestyle and arming the parents with that information. Now, coalition, meaning you brought a lot of people into this. And now I want you to go back to some of the most important people who have leaned into this effort. And Sheriff Gannon, of course, with his Hope One vans and all the things that he does, it makes a lot of sense for him to be involved. What has he brought to the coalition?
Well, that's funny, because to prepare for today, I went back and looked at a lot of our notes. And when we began, it was just prior to Sheriff Gannon. So Sheriff Gannon becoming sheriff and doing what he did is a godsend. Because if we just make believe Sheriff Gannon didn't do what he's done for the last how many years, look where we would be. So I think we almost take Sheriff Gannon for granted. But with Sheriff Gannon and some of our police chiefs and superintendents, they're always my first phone calls. I always give the people close to me an opportunity to say, I'm not sure about this one, or, we began that. Let me check where we are with it. So collaborating is important, but with collaboration comes a true goal and honesty and a dedication to really wanting the result. Because if you look at everybody in our group, and there's a lot now, there's no heroes in our group. We work for the bigger picture, the greater good, and the outcome of our work.
Yeah.
And even with our suicide prevention seminar, although that list has some heavy hitters on it, they're listed in alphabetical order as hosts. There's no hero.
I love that. I love that, Ace. And we're going to list those names at the end. I want to read them to you because not because they want any kind of exposure, but because I want people to know how dedicated these individuals are. Let's talk about the suicide prevention. I want to just back up for a minute. When you started this, the focus was on the drug epidemic. The focus was on good choices and arming people with information. Now let's usher in the lockdowns of the pandemic. I mean, you talk about starting something that was needed more than you could have imagined. Now we are facing not only the drug epidemic that continues to be a challenge, but now we have this mental health crisis. And, you know, I was looking at some stats today because, you know, we hear them all the time, but I think sometimes we forget how serious this has become. And let me just read you a couple of things from the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. They're saying that children and adolescents are probably more likely to experience high rates of depression and anxiety during forced isolation. Well, no kidding. And that was back in 2020 when they said that. And then we start to look at what that led us to, and just focusing on teen girls alone between February and March of 2021, as a result of the lockdowns and the isolation and all the things that we were warned about, the teen suicide attempts were 50.6% higher just in girls from age 12 to 17, when you compare that to a similar period in 2019. You talk about an epidemic. This is something that we cannot ignore. And so the coalition has now really made sure that suicide awareness, mental health awareness, talk about what you're doing with all of that to address this growing scary issue among our teens.
Well, that even goes back before the pandemic, because what we do with our drug coalition, and if you look at some of our partners, we all know the term play date at our age.
Yeah.
Well, what we try to do is introduce youngsters to activities that they may not ordinarily have been introduced to, such as martial arts, very good training facilities. We created just before the pandemic a music and arts division because isolation is dangerous. And although I quote Richie Blackmore, and I love Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple, but I say I'm not a Richie Blackmore guy. He said a musician is a very dangerous person because their best friend is their instrument. And that's isolation. So although we've looked at strengthening people, helping them with positive role models to possibly stay on the straight line, because like I said, we were all on the fence. We could have went either way, most of the people I grew up with. But what we try to do too is understand that everything was magnified with the pandemic. Because if somebody was isolated and maybe wasn't very social and maybe felt bad about themselves and wanted to be home and alone, well, they were home and alone a lot longer than anybody could understand. Because don't forget, it was supposed to be stop the curve. It was supposed to be 10 days to 2 weeks.
2 weeks, right.
So I had breakfast with Sheriff Gannon about 14 months ago, and he told me his biggest concern was when everybody comes back into society. And if you look at what we're trying to do, we're trying to reach in and let those people know, hey, we're here, we're loud, we're funny, we know everybody, we'll set up anything you want to set up to have a good time. But the other problem that we're working on is most people won't tell you they're struggling.
Right.
So even with our suicide seminar, I'll call it, we invited our varsity football teams. We invited our theater groups. We invited our musicians and our bands. because this way, most people that go will believe they have an official capacity because they're big, they're machismo, they have the varsity jacket, and they're cool. But statistically, if you put many people in that room, that message is going to get to more people where they might say, hey, you know what? I've been struggling with this. I have nobody to talk to, because people also feel embarrassed when they have a problem.
Sure.
And they make believe they don't. So this program is very, very important and at a very good time, because the parents also have to understand, hey, maybe my kid's not just feeling blue for 3-4 days because so-and-so isn't calling them back.
That's right.
Maybe something's up. And it's been a big, big challenge for everybody, including many of the adults I know.
It has, and parents need answers. They need help. They need ways that they can help their children, what to look for. I think parents are searching more than ever for that information. So what the coalition is doing, and I want to give our audience this specifically, and we'll be listing this below in the comments too, but there are 2 upcoming evenings, very important suicide prevention seminars that will be in Whippany at the Abundant Life Whippany Church. The first week you're doing this is for the adults and the parents, and that's on Thursday, March 24th at 7 p.m. So that is for adults and parents. And the following week will then be focused on the teens, Thursday, March 31st at 7 p.m. So this is where we see the community coming together. And Ace, I just want to read here with the flyer that I have. I just want to read these names. And again, not because these individuals need any kind of confirmation of who they are, but because, as you say, we have very good people in this community who are focused on helping. So we've got Mayor Barbario from Parsippany involved in this, Mike Cochran, who is with the town of Morristown Public Service Director, you, of course, and of course, our beloved Sheriff Gannon will be part of this. Mike Locke, who is Chief of Police of Hanover Township. The Mental Health Association will be involved, and I know you work closely with them. Pastor Vernon Outlaw at Abundant Life Whippany, which happens to be my church, so it feels nice for me to know that they have leaned in. Mayor Joe Panula, of course, of East Hanover, Darnell Richardson, Chief of Police in town of Morristown, and Stephen Shaw, of course, who is a Morris County Commissioner. All of these men have gotten involved to support this, to say, we have an epidemic. We've got to give our community answers, and we've got to solve this problem. How does that feel when all these people come to the table and want to support this?
Well, Elizabeth, I just want to jump in and add 3 very important people to that list. We don't do very much without Florham Park Mayor Mark Taylor.
Oh my gosh, how is he not? What? Yeah, my favorite mayor.
There was a couple press releases, and one of them, some of the names went to page 2.
Got it.
And boom, he gave it to me over that.
Got it.
We also have Rosemary Becky, who's a
Yes.
wonderful, wonderful lady. She's involved with us as a host. And then we don't do very much without Senator Bucco.
Yes, of
Senator
course.
Bucco is going to be there with us also. But what's interesting, again, is if you look at each one of these individuals, they're public servants. Like, you could say, oh, you guys are all a bunch of politicians. No, I think there's a big difference between a politician and a public servant.
I agree.
And if you were to call any one of these people right now, they would take your call or call you back within an hour or 2.
That's right.
They're wonderful, wonderful people that are selfless. And when we first brought this up, they didn't say, put my name on there. They said, how can I help? I'll do anything you need.
That's
and
right.
to me, that means the world.
Yep, absolutely.
And you know what? Even alphabetical order, not one person said anything about alphabetical order. And I did make it clear that, oh, you're an official host. And they laughed because there's nobody featured here.
Yeah. No, and these people don't, it's not an ego thing. They care about their community. They have been selfless, as you have been. So that's what's coming up. And we wanted to do this interview to make sure people saw this and were felt invited and welcome. And there is absolutely no stigma attending these seminars. In fact, I urge everyone to do it. I will be there. We need to know what's going on, not just with our children, but in our community. We all have to have eyes and ears to help each other. Now, you've been really leaning into the mental health community yourself in terms of getting involved. You are chairing a gala in May surrounding that. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Mental Health Association has a gala every year, but they didn't have it last year because of COVID.
Right.
and they're aware of a lot of the work that we're doing. And they approached me and asked me if I would be the Morris County chair. And we had a meeting, and it sounded very interesting. And I said, if you believe I can help, I'd be honored to do it.
Right.
So I made a few of my phone calls, and I reviewed everything, and I agreed to do it. And it's a real opportunity, too, for the whole group I'm involved in to realize that this world is out there. Because just like with the Ukraine situation right now, a lot of people want to help and a lot of people want to do the right thing, but they don't know how to go about it and what's real.
Yeah.
The Mental Health Association is real.
Yeah.
These people are wonderful.
Yeah.
And from me interacting with them as much as I've been lately, we're going to be looking at a lot of new initiatives and how to get that information to our people. And when I was younger, and I laugh about this with the coalition, there was a commercial for JGE. It was about a furniture store or an appliance store. And they referred to the man that couldn't go to the mountain, so the mountain came to the man. We realize that we have to bring the mountain to the man. And we do it through our technology. We do it through our website, which is now rebuilding because COVID kind of shut it down. We went full social media on sharing information, but we want to bring information to people.
Yeah.
But the importance of an event like next week and the gala is to let people know we're here. And you nailed something before, stigma. Stigma-free is a beautiful term and slogan, but we have to begin to live it a little bit better.
Yes.
And me and you were involved in a lot of different things. And politics is funny, even though many of us call ourselves public servants. You could do the coolest thing in the world and feel good about it, and somehow you aggravated somebody. and it's true. So the stigma is interesting because, for instance, me and my brother had red hair and played music. And it's all we wanted to do was play music. But we were chastised because we played music and had red hair. But when we got older, that became cool.
Yeah.
When you're younger, it's hard to understand that. You know what I mean? And you have to make believe it doesn't bother you. And that's why I think our group is good, because we try to understand what people are thinking and feeling. And even at Menon Arena, we have Friday nights at Menon.
That's right.
And I could tell you there's been thousands of children that have come in, and I've worked the door with different people. And I say, have fun, be careful. And if you have a problem, come find me and I'll fix it. Like, I'm nothing wonderful, but it makes the kid feel safe, secure, and he's going to have fun. And if he has a problem, he can come find me.
Yeah.
What we try to do is let people know we're here and they're not alone. And any problem they've had, probably a lot of people have had those problems.
That is so true. Isn't that the truth? And I think sometimes teenagers have a hard time believing us old people when we say that. But anything they're facing, someone else has faced as well. To continue on your love for that age group and your dedication, I know you recently joined the Morris County Republican Committee executive team chairing the Morris County Teenage Republicans. So while that is in itself politics, the reality is it's another way to reach out to the youth, to give them purpose, to see the potential in them and help develop that. So that's an obvious next step for you. And you also wanted to talk about Morris 200 Club as we wrap up. What did you want to say about that?
I just wanted to say that, again, James Gannon. I spoke to James Gannon about Tunnel to Towers because Tunnel to Towers does some beautiful things.
Yes.
And I said to James Gannon that my family are largely school teachers and we have a lot of law enforcement in my family. I said, where we are now, we want to help a little more on a different level. So when the sheriff talked to me about the 200 Club, of course, I made my phone calls and I did my research. And it's such a wonderful organization. They do so many great things for people that really need it. And if anybody watching this can Google the Morris County 200 Club, I think you'd be very, very impressed. They do great work. And we're beginning a fundraising initiative right here in Hanover Township this September, where we're going to have a home run derby. And we're going to invite all 39 municipalities. We're going to have the finals that day together. Morris Sussex Sports is going to do play-by-play because we're very good friends with George Muha.
Yeah.
And we're just going to do a lot more to bring attention to that group and what they do and why they do it. And I think that's really important.
That's excellent. So I want to remind everybody the dates they need to pay attention to. We've got upcoming suicide prevention seminars the coalition is putting on, again, with all these incredible co-hosts and partners. Thursday, March 24th at 7 at Abundant Life in Whippany on Jefferson Road. That's for adults and parents. And the following week is Thursday, March 31st, 7 p.m. Same location, and that is for teens. And if you're interested in the gala for the Mental Health Association, that is in West Orange on May 15th. And if you Google their information, you can get specifics. I have to tell you, Ace, that you're a very important part of our community. And I know you don't look for accolades at all, which is one of the things that makes you so great. But I do have to tip my hat to you and thank you on behalf of those of us that live in the area that you serve, which is really broader Morris County, not just your town. You have made a great difference. And, you know, you'll never really know how many lives you have changed and maybe even saved through all of this. So through the tough times, I pray that you continue. And on behalf of the community, I just want to say thank you so very much.
Well, anybody that knows me knows that I'm usually not lost for words, but I think that was very nice. I don't know what to say. So thank you very much. And I appreciate everything you do. I really do.
Absolutely, Ace. Thank you. And we'll just send one last note to Sheriff Gannon because he is beloved by all of these people and we couldn't do it without him. So, you know, shout out to him as well. Ace, thank you so much. We'll be seeing you at some of these events and we will be posting about them. Obviously, Jersey First is committed through Rosemary Becky, who started this organization to support you and everything that you do. So once again, thank you to my audience, guys. Don't miss this stuff. It's for everyone. And we will see you all next week.
Thank you very much.